All right, good evening, Oriole Nation. Board meeting 123-23.
All right, I will call to order the January board meeting of the Board of Education School District of North Fond du Lac. Roll call, please.
Mandy.
Here.
Hack.
Here.
Kovatsky here. Geckerman.
Here.
Jaeger.
Here. All right, next item is a report on public notice.
Public notices were posted on the entrance doors for the district office, FLC, BAMS, Horace Mann, and school website on January 20th, 2023.
Okay, you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item is the board mission statement and agreements by Dr. Mino.
So our agreements really are about those beliefs that are standing up right back here, is stand up and own it. So when we come in every single evening, when we get to be here, how do we bring and own what we're saying, what we're doing, and being present while we're here? The second belief is really about the power of team and how do we lean in on each other and help each other out and learn from each other without judgment. And then finally, the passion for growth, continuously learning, trying to get our district as a whole the best they can possibly be. So.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item F, the consent agenda. This is something we started a couple months ago, or I think last month. It's a number of items that are pretty much automatic every month with no discussion. The board has a chance to ask questions prior to the meeting. So to be efficient and save everybody's time, we've gone to a consent agenda for certain items, which are all listed here. I'll read through them. So they're mentioned December 14th policy committee meeting minutes, and the December 14th regular board meeting minutes, the treasurer's report, an early graduation request, 23-24 course description book for Horace Mann High School, and 2023-2024 school calendars, both the staff calendar and the parent family calendar. And just one thing I wanted to check on the early graduation request one, did the board members all receive today the updated, I guess, requests?
Yeah.
So that if we do if it stays in the consent agenda, then it's appropriate. And with that, Dr. Mino, I just would like to suggest that the high school staff make sure before they send stuff to the board here to make sure it's complete before we put it on the agenda. So
Understood. Thank you.
all right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, and then roll call.
Matthew.
Yes.
Jaeger.
Yes.
Geckerman.
Yes.
Hack.
Yes.
Kovatsky, yes.
Motion carries. Item G, board members share a moment of pride. Which way we want to start this time? Terry, would you like to first?
Over the past few weeks, I was able to attend some of the youth basketball tournaments. I just wanted to say that the youth basketball board did a great job putting those tournaments together. There was great attendance when I was there, and it was a great way to show off our facility to surrounding communities when they come in and watch those tournaments.
I had the opportunity to see them all work firsthand, but the building trades people, Mr. McDowell does a fabulous job with those students. They're out helping one of the community members with their pier that got damaged by the ice, and just all the little things that he can find to keep them busy and to give them experiences and help the community too. So kudos to all of those students and Mr. McDowell for always looking for something. It's awesome.
Well, I get to go third and you both took both of mine, so I'm gonna just add to it. One, yeah, like Mr. McDowell, just, how to connect the community to the class, that's pretty cool. And then the youth tourney, Dave, your team again, I'll say this every year, but they talk about how great the facility is and how clean it is, and they think it's a college campus, FLC, or a high school, so it shows well and continues to represent the district well, so thank you to you and your team.
All right, I had a conversation with Liz Forbes, who's the longtime alternative school teacher, and now the Phoenix Academy, I think it's morphed into that. And she sent me a statistic that before this started this school year, 121 students earned their high school diplomas through their work at the ALC and then Phoenix Academy, which I think was awesome, and wanted to make everybody aware of that.
I had a couple things. One is the Trefford Way had a couple informational meetings on the high school, and they were well attended by parents, grandparents, and students. But what always amazes me is the commitment and dedication the staff has to show up at these extra meetings and really participate. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Dr. Mino and Dr. Patterson. They facilitated the sessions, did an excellent job of getting everybody involved. The second thing is I attended the incubator MVP pitches. I think I saw Mr. Wisner here somewhere. There he goes. And I think 7 teams pitched it, and they did an awesome job. There was a huge crowd, a lot of mentors, people from throughout the state that come and watch, and even Campbellsport brought a bunch of high school kids to come and watch. And the kids did a great job. It's a great experience. So it was time well spent, and I appreciated being invited.
All right. Thank you. All right, item H is Bessie Allen representatives will share.
I'll start. We have a crowded house of Bessie Allen Middle School staff and students here today. We wanted to highlight the creativity and flexibility that our 8th grade team has shown, particularly with the creation of exploratories that best match what our students need in order to be prepared for careers. So the first exploratory is 8th grade leadership taught by Mr. Whitaker. And then the second exploratory is a combination of 2 former exploratories. It's called 8th grade innovations. It's a combination of Mrs. Fox and consumer science class. That was a 9-week course. And Mr. Wisner's business class, which also did the food expo previously. And that was another 9-week class. So they combined 2 9-week classes into an 18-week semester-based course called 8th grade innovation. So I'm gonna let Mr. Whitaker start, and he'll talk about his 8th grade leadership class and some of the projects they've done for our school.
Hi, so this 8th grade leadership class, it's something that is brand new this year, and the kids that were in first quarter really kind of spearheaded the whole thing. When trying to figure out what this leadership course is gonna look like, it was kind of like, well, what are we gonna do? I found online a program called Be for Change, which is based on this book here by David Novak. And that was kind of our guiding principle. And one of the things that I guess the program wanted them to do is the kids to have some type of service learning project or program that was student driven, that they created, and they did everything with it. So with this program, they developed it, they came up with what it was gonna look like, they met with the people within the school to figure out what we were gonna do at Bessie Allen, what it was gonna look like. And based on the success we had, the leadership class has kind of changed a little bit because I want to make sure that what they created here in first quarter, we continue on throughout the rest of the school year, every year. And it's a program that they developed and created, and they were the driving force behind it. So I brought 2 students in here, Brennan and Emerson. Brennan was in first quarter, who was really the spearhead with this. Emerson, first quarter, was the driving force behind this and kind of created this for the group that were in there. And then Bren was in second quarter, and they're kind of seeing this through then. So with Emerson and the other kids that were in their first quarter, it was something that they started, and because it was only 9 weeks, and then created it and did everything they needed to do. They were able to do a couple weeks with what the program was all about. And then second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, now we see it through and we keep doing it. So we're gonna turn it over to the ladies here. They're gonna talk to you a little bit about what this program is.
So, BAMS, I kind of like, we started by brainstorming with what we could do by helping around the school and asking people and all the teachers what they would like us to help them with. And our class came up with the name BATU, which stands for Bessie Allen Tidy Up. And so we started brainstorming and lessons with Mr. Whitaker, and we met with Mrs. Broughton, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Krieger, and Mrs. McDowell, and we started talking about the nurturing nest, and Mr. Gonzalez about all the things on the school that they would need help with. And it was just, we started by asking questions and brainstorming more things about just little things around the school that would we could help improve. And we ended up creating a logo and an elevator speech, which I'm gonna hand out right now.
And as they're handing this out to you, everything that they did with this program with Bessie Allen Tidy Up was driven by the kids. I mean, it was their idea. They came up with what it was gonna be. They came up with the elevator speech, which is on that piece of paper, which is basically an opportunity to talk about the program really quick, as if you're in an elevator with someone, just say, hey, have you heard about this program? And I think they'll read the elevator speech maybe.
Oh. That was my
Okay.
When you think about a good culture or a good community, what do you think of? Well, we believe that it all has to start with being clean and organized and making our school pleasant to be in and around. Little things like that can change a whole mood and attitude of the people within the culture or community.
Just like how simply missing one step in your morning routine can completely set your day on a different track. We want to make Bessie Allen a place where those little details affect people's attitudes in a positive way. And we think BATU can do that.
So we had first quarter students who came in earlier, and they started talking about BATU and everything, and I wasn't able to be there, but I think that they told teachers fill out a Google form when they need help. So they put their email, their classroom number, and something they would need help with, a bulletin board or decorating doors or simple other things like that. So things that we do around the school, we maintain the sign in the front of the school.
We have a pencil pail thing, so if students find pencils on the ground, there's a pail there that they can set the pencils in for the kids that don't necessarily have pencils or if they broke or something.
Yeah, and during the holidays and other events, the people in leadership decorate doors for teachers, just paper, and they paint it and they come up with little ideas for the doors and themes and stuff. So I think that.
And then after lunch, we wipe down all the tables and put them up, and then sweep up after lunch all the garbage that's on the ground to help out the janitors so they don't have to do as much after lunch.
And then I don't know much about this because I'm not in my class right now, but they designed and created a new spirit stick.
Yeah, so that's something that was added after first quarter. They came to us and said, hey, could you create a new spirit stick for us? And that's something that we're in the process of creating right now as we speak.
Yeah. During class, sometimes we walk around with the tennis ball roomy thingies, and we take off all the scuff marks on the floor so it looks
And I also, I was in the former class, but, they helped Mrs. Vanderpass with the Skyward mobile option, which I have not heard of either. And they picked up garbage outside of the school.
We wrote positive messages on the sidewalks in front of dams with chalk to help, like, kids have a better attitude about coming to school.
Yeah, just brightening people's moods.
Bessie Allen Tidy Up really took off for this quarter. We were really busy, and because of that, we have been focusing more on the leadership class and giving lessons in leadership while making sure that Bessie Allen Tidy Up is still running. Some of the topics that have been covered in this class are what is leadership, the different styles of leadership, our values, communication. We also read the Twin Thieves book every week, and we have a training manual thing where we have to do reflection questions once we read like the 4 chapters. We also complete a kindness project that we will complete by the end of the quarter for Bessie Allen.
So this program then that we do, and like was mentioned, it really did take off, with teachers saying, hey, I need help doing this or that. So it really kind of changes on day to day as far as what it looks like. And I really wanted to focus in on then that we get that program really going and being successful with it, as opposed to, oh, 9 weeks is over, okay, now we're gonna do something new. So because of that, then it's kind of changed then, and it's all about this Bessie Allen Tidy Up, making sure, we follow that throughout the course of the year, reading that Twin Thieves book, with the leadership lessons in here with different training manuals and discussions and thoughts with it. And then really not doing that lead for change anymore, because first quarter did that, and now we have the program, and now we're talking about the leadership principles with it and keeping Bessie Allen Tidy Up, being successful. And like I said, it's all student driven. They came up with it, they did it, they created the logo, they did all that stuff. And they were a really good group, and they continue to be really good groups of kids coming in that really kind of take ownership then within the school. And it's really kind of cool to see where they take some pride in it too. So it's been a good adventure so far in this class and for leadership.
Can I ask a question quick? Ren Emerson, how do peers respond to this? I mean, you're doing this work, you're out there, and then, take what you learned from Twin Thieves of fear and judgment. How do you guys get yourselves right to make sure you do the work still?
Well, we started off by just hanging up these little pictures of the logo, and then people all of a sudden walk up and they're like, hey, you're part of that little BATU thing, aren't you? Like, what's that all about? And then I explained it to them a little bit, and people are like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like, sounds really just interesting. I feel like that was really good. That was like, I thought it was gonna be like, oh, you're just doing that for a class or something, but they're actually like, wow, you're doing that.
Yeah. I don't know, because I have the second quarter, everybody basically already knew about it, and they knew all the stuff that we've been doing. So it was more of like excitement for like the first quarter because it was something new, but I have second, so it was like, I don't know. Like, it's still good that we're doing it and stuff and people still appreciate it, but everybody already knows about it.
Like I said, it took off, especially with the door decorating, right around Christmas. A bunch of teachers wanted their door decorating, so we had 5 or 6 different groups within that one class. They voted on leaders who were like team leaders, and then they drafted their teams, and then, every day it was organized chaos, so to speak, as far as this person's going here to work on this door and that door, and, just trying to organize it all. But it was really cool to see, because like I said, it's the students that are driving it, the students that are doing it. It's the students that are getting excited about it. And I'm just kind of the guy on the side making it happen. And they've been doing a great job with it.
So is there any qualifications that the students have to have, or is it pretty much they they pick who they want to? I mean, is it certain grades that they have to have in order to do any of this?
To be in that class?
Yeah.
You wanna,
Every student takes this class.
Oh,
It's an exploratory 8th grade class.
oh, exploratory, sorry, I got it. I'm thinking it's a club.
So we changed it from,
Yeah.
it was Project Lead the Way for many years. And we made a pivot to more of the leadership component. Because we felt that that was very necessary for 8th graders. And it's worked out like a charm.
Great.
Anybody else?
So now we have, Mrs. Fox and Mr. Wismer, and they're gonna talk about the 8th grade innovations class that they created. So you have the floor.
Well, before we get started, it's great you guys are doing this leadership class. We're starting a leadership class at the high school next year, so we're gonna be able to dig much deeper because of the lessons you guys are benchmarking for us, so thank you. So Steffi and I, last year we were just sort of talking, we're like, well, can we join forces on stuff? Because I was doing my entrepreneurship 8th grade class and we did our food and snack convention, which has gone over fairly well. And Stephanie was doing all of our fantastic things with family consumer sciences in that 8th grade rotation as well. And we're like, what happened if we put this together and what could happen? So we brainstormed and worked that through. And over the summer, we crafted the curriculum out and how that was all going to flow. And we tried it for the first time this year and it worked.
We're still alive.
We're still alive. We made it. Yeah. We had our guesses and our doubts and such, and, but in the end, the kids all stepped up at the very end and surprised us and did a fantastic job. Can you talk a little bit about what you cover in your content?
So one of the things is I didn't want to lose the other components of my 8th grade exploratory where I teach child development and some basic sewing skills like sewing on a button. That was one thing that I said I have to keep that because I think it's so important. But then we get into safety and sanitation in the kitchen and things like that still. And it was important for me with the food and snack convention, before kids were bringing in food from home, and I'm a little bit weird about food sometimes and where it comes from and who made it and how clean were their hands. And so I liked the idea of me having control over food we're serving to other people, but also putting the kids on a level playing field where before they were bringing in stuff from home and what if the kid can't afford to go to the grocery store and forgets and all of those things. So, I sort of have control over that now of what they're making. So we did the normal lessons that we did in the kitchen that I've always done, but then they worked with Mr. Wismer to develop sort of a chip and dip was the guidelines we gave them. And lesson learned, we won't do chips and dip again. It was a little bit of an undertaking. It was a lot of grocery shopping, a lot of failures, a lot of constructive feedback that some of the groups took and some didn't, but lessons learned for all of us. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah. And then in the portion of my class, we're going through, tomorrow we'll start basic economic foundations and then work our way into, it's sort of just a quick exposure into entrepreneurship, right? So we'll do some accounting, we'll do some management, we'll do some, we'll create a business plan, we'll do their marketing, and they'll do pitch and some graphic design for all their work and such. But it's all then focused around the product and of chips and dip that they're making with Stephanie and her class. And it is right, it really did level the playing field for the kids. In the past, the kids would bring in products and such from home, and our 8th grade staff would come up and try it. Nobody died of dysentery yet, so that was always good. And I was always grateful for the staff for trying some of the stuff. And so this year, it's a much more well-organized process, and I think we kind of leveled up on that. So
We learned a lot.
yeah, we did. We learned a lot. It was our first attempt in learning, and good progress in that. And we'll have some more. We'll be adjusting accordingly moving forward. So in May, you guys are all welcome to stop by and try whatever we decide to make next time.
It won't be chips and dip.
It won't be chips and dip. And Emerson and Brent are going to be, and they'll be there.
Yep.
They're in the class now.
All right, any questions or comments?
The chips and dip experience was good. It was great. I got to sample and just appreciate it. I love how we're really, creating a stage and student agency for our kids. to be able to have that and to, establish like what other people are thinking about, like from the empathy of your leadership class of really asking people what they need and what they want to then, the design of how do we, best, market and sell something to, our consumers and the enjoyment of both. So I really appreciate everybody's work and what we've been doing so far. So thank you so much for all you do and great to be part of this district.
Yeah. Thank you on behalf of the board too. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know in January it isn't always fun to come to an evening meeting, but this has been a great addition to our board meetings too. We don't often get a chance to get into school unless there's something specific, and to see the kids and see staff that can tell us about what they're doing is awesome for us. So thank you very much. All right. I know most of you would like to stay for all the rest of the stuff, but we do allow you to leave if you'd like.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, thank you too.
We can't do that.
All right, then moving on. The next item is the Horseman High School Student Council representatives. We have President Aiden Fowler here, and I don't see Nate, but our Vice President Nate Kent. I'm assuming he's got some conflict tonight, right?
Yep, yeah, he should be here next month.
Okay.
So it's really crazy to believe that we just finished semester one. I only have one more semester left. But I suppose time flies when you're having fun. Though not as chaotic during the beginning of this semester, semester two will be jam-packed with events ranging from our student council's pink out game, winter ball, family night, the Horseman High School Top 10 dinner, the jazz chili supper, and then graduation. For my student council report, the student council members started off the year strong, pushing forward with their annual winter ball planning. So this select committee plans everything from the dance's theme, songs, crowns, and everything in between. This year's event will take place on February 18th, 8:30 to 11 o'clock. We're still looking for chaperones, so if you'd like to chaperone the dance, let me know. And this year's theme is Valentine's Day. In addition to the winter ball, there will also be winter spirit days leading up to the dance. Monday being whiteout, Tuesday is our pink out, Wednesday, celebrity lookalike day, Thursday, jerseys, and of course, Friday, our orange and black. Other events during the week include the Horseman High School Forensics Sub-District event on that Monday, and the girls varsity basketball pink out game versus Mayville Cardinals on that Tuesday, the 14th. Following the pink out game, the juniors and senior classes will be butting heads again for the first annual Power Buff game. Similar to our Powder Puff, during homecoming, seniors and junior boys will play a game of volleyball where the varsity volleyball players will act as coaches. And then for Key Club, which is our club for this month that we're sponsoring. So Backpack Buddies, if you're not aware, is an organization within our district where food items are collected around the community and given to families to help assist their food consumption throughout the weekend. Each year, the Horseman High School Key Club and National Honor Society host a food drive to give back to the Backpack Buddies program. We plan to continue this, and I believe our event is scheduled for next month. The Key Club will also be hosting a few service events throughout the remainder of the year for the Fond du Lac Humane Society. Key Club members are able to donate financially towards the Humane Society, where members will receive service hours in return. But we're also hosting a supply drive to help stock up on much needed supplies. And then the featured department, this month is our business department. As you may have seen within our school's social media platforms, the business department has been extremely busy coming into the semester. Students within the web design class have finished websites for Catering by Juan and Whimsical Celebrations LLC, both businesses within our community. The students within these classes created mock websites for the local entrepreneurs to choose from. Juan Carlos Mora from Catering by Juan selected the website created by Faith Tillman and Jenna Krupp, where Jessica Williams from Whimsical Celebrations chose a website created by Riley Coleman. They'll now be deployed as working websites for these businesses. You may have also seen that Hayden Stepbacher, a student in Computer Essentials, has become fully certified in Microsoft as a fully certified Microsoft Office specialist in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. He's worked a consecutive 2 semesters to achieve this accomplishment with his certifications, taking a total of 3 exams. And then finally, the students within our Incubator EDU program pitched their company to community judges, Megan Hart from the Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at UW Oshkosh, Christy Scott from the Uncharted Learning Program, which is the national host of the Incubator EDU program, Stephanie Waldschmidt from Campbell Sports School District, and Jeffrey O'Brien from Legacy Express. Each of the student teams were able to secure $100 in funding for their startups to use on their websites, prototyping, marketing, and other startup necessities. So yeah, it's been a great start to the year. From here, it's all about maintaining and improving the growth and experience for all of our students. So, thank you.
You bet. Any questions for Aiden? And same with what I said with the other classes coming in, you keep us very well informed at high school and do a nice job. So, you bet. All right, next is the clerk's report.
Correspondences, I have none at this time. Donations for Backpack Buddies, Wayne Shingen, $100. North Fond du Lac Optimist Club, $123. Fondy Food Pantry Gift in Kind for 22, the year 22, $1,000. Fondy Food Pantry Gift in Kind for 23, $5,000. Jenny Dunlagari, $500. And then for the wellness team, I'm assuming that all of this is products or like for prizes for, right, for
wellness initiatives that we do, different activities.
right. So Beans and Bites, a t-shirt, to-go mug, a color changing reusable tumbler with straw, and a straw and cleaner. And then for Imprint, $500 in products.
All right, thank you very much. Next item is citizen comments section. I guess I don't really see any citizens here to speak to the board, but just make sure here. So, all right, moving on. Item L, review of the 21-22 annual audit by Logan Krieger from Huberty Associates.
Hello, I'm Logan Krieger from Huberty. I've been with the firm just over 5.5 years. I'm an audit manager there. I've been in our insurance department ever since, so only do audit, no taxes. Completely fine with me. So I know a few of you, but for those that don't know, I was an Oriole, graduated in 2013, so it's pretty cool for me to come back, kind of be on the other side of things. You'll see things like what they just talked about today in the incubator program, kind of growing. That stuff was definitely not around when I was here, so it's cool to come back and kind of be on the other side of things, and kind of help the school in any way that I can. So thank you guys for having me here. Letting me kind of take a few minutes and present the audit. Also like to thank Maria and her staff. Some of our staff kind of fight now. This is now that our second year, a couple of them are kind of begging to come here because working with Maria is awesome. And her staff being able to get us everything, and everybody knows what we're asking for, and it's truly an efficient process for us, and we're in and out in like 3 days, I think. So sometimes there's a little bit of back and forth between us, working between all the different deadlines that DPI throws at us, which seems like between one of us, it's almost every week from September to December. So it's quite busy, but overall, no issues with the audit or anything like that. So I did kind of create a cheat sheet for you to go over some of the numbers. It's a little easier to digest than looking at some of our big reports, especially for people that aren't versed in government accounting. So hopefully this helps you out a little bit and just kind of give you a little bit of a comparative picture. I only did 2 years because we didn't audit 3 years ago, so I didn't want to present information that we didn't look at all. I wouldn't, this is kind of an informal thing, nothing that would, I would submit to anybody for anything, just more for information purposes. So I'll start with kind of the audit here, the big one. The main piece, the one that everybody looks for is our audit opinion. If you're looking at the page 3. Kind of the main piece here is the second paragraph under the opinion paragraph that states, we audited the financial statements and they're presented fairly in all material respects to the financial statements. So good job, no issues there. If there was issues, we'd have a lot bigger paragraph. I mean, quite honestly, you guys would probably hear from us beforehand, so which is a good thing. The next other, kind of the rest of this report, we talk about the basis for our opinion, the government auditing standards that we follow. We do announce in here any accounting change principles, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later just to explain kind of what was new this year. Strictly for the financial statements, nothing really, other than Maria having to dig up some contracts for us, really nothing that truly affected the district. The rest of this audit report goes through the responsibility of management, and then it goes through as auditor, our responsibility. I am going to kind of jump around throughout this. Most of it is, nothing new from the prior year, so it doesn't really pay to kind of go into the details of that too much. So I will start on page 8. So page 8 and 9 kind of go together. Page 8 is your statement of net position, and page 9 would be your statement of activities. These numbers and these two statements will not tie back to what Skyward says. It takes into things into factor like your WRS pension. You pay into that, so there's an asset sitting at WRS that's got funds allocated to the district. There's other post-employment benefits, one's for health insurance for retirees and one's for life insurance. Again, those assets or liabilities are not something that the district records. Same thing with long-term debt. You're not recording your outstanding balances or any of your capital assets like your buildings, vehicles, anything like that. That's not recorded as an asset in Skyward. So just a note there. And then I'm actually going to jump to page 10 and 11. These are what we call your fund statements, and these numbers will directly correlate to what's in Skyward. And this is where I pulled all the numbers from on this cheat sheet. So the first kind of 3 clumps, I guess, what we'll call it here on this cheat sheet, it'll be a little bit easier to digest than looking at these statements. But these first 3, the general fund, debt service fund, and your other capital projects fund are what we consider your 3 major funds of the district. There's certain qualifications and then like an evaluation that we do on our end to figure out what's a major fund. Typically though, these 3 funds are the ones that we consider major. So some quick highlights, revenue increase for the general fund, by $1.1 million or 6%. Keep in mind, there are some things in there for ESSER. I think ESSER funds increased a little bit. There's also some governor funds. I think one of them was like the Get Kids Ahead grant. And then there was another governor fund. So kind of some outlier funds that, maybe they're not, and those couple things aren't in total the 1.1 million. There's some other like general aid costs that increased this year. But I just wanted to point out that there is some funds right around that like $200,000, $300,000 mark that potentially may not be here in the future. But it is the government, so you never know what's coming down the pipeline. Debt service fund. Nothing really, too extraordinary there that increased. I think property taxes is the main key. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but for the revenue increase there. But overall, I skipped one thing. Sorry, I'm going to go back up to the general fund. There's 2 percentages there, that 18%. That's where we take your fund balance of the 3.8 million and divide it by your expenses of 21 million. We generally like to see that percent between 15 and 20. That kind of just gauges, what the strength of the district and its kind of financial health. If you're below 15%, generally you might want to look at your expenses if you're paying more expenses than kind of what you're bringing in. So if that percent is decreasing, you would have that discussion. If you're over 20%, usually that means that you're bringing in more revenue than, or if that, the number is increasing, then you'd be bringing in more revenue and you're not investing enough back into the district. But sitting at 18%, the last 2 years, you guys are doing really good. It's kind of sitting right in that sweet spot between that 15 and 20%. So kudos to you guys for that one.
And, wouldn't you say, Logan, that if you're below 15%, you're typically short-term borrowing?
Yes, yep. Yeah, short-term borrowing. I know Maria's pretty proud to say that you haven't done that for 2 years in a row.
We've never done it.
Oh, never done it, so
Yeah.
that's even better. There's a lot of districts we go to that can't say that, or have, that short-term borrowing that they have to do that. So not being able to, borrow from the bank, that's a good thing. So then statement or page number 12 is just a reconciliation between kind of what we call the district-wide. Again, the district-wide statements are those first 2 pages that include, like your WRS debt and fixed assets and all that stuff. This goes through the changes in those and kind of reconciles the 2 different statements together. Next on page 13, note A here is quite lengthy. This just goes through some of the accounting policies and it kind of just addresses the way that the district reports certain things throughout these financial statements. There was nothing new there except for on page 18. So I'll skip ahead to that page. And this is due to the new accounting pronouncement regarding leases. Again, had nothing, no real financial impact to the school or anything like that. Honestly, just made more work for us and Maria a little bit. So basically what happened with leases is, in the past, when you have a lease, let's say like a copier, and you have a purchase option at the end of the copier and the district, owns it at the end, we would consider that an operating lease. So you book an asset, you book a liability, and when you would pay it over time, that liability would go away and the district would keep the asset. If there was no purchase option at the end, kind of in simple terms, if you were to lease the copier and then 3 years, you're giving it back to, like wherever you're leasing it from. Now we are required to report that as a lease, and it's called a right to use lease. So you'd be booking the asset and you'd be booking the liability. So you'd be depreciating that asset over 3 years. And then after the 3 years, the asset and the liability would disappear. Quite honestly, it's just a way to kind of present a true liability of what the district owes to people. In your case, there was nothing new. We just changed the wording on our statements from capital lease to right to use lease. So other than us, we had to ask Maria to pull a bunch of contracts because it goes a little bit deeper than just a copier. I don't need to bore you guys with that and put you to sleep. So nothing new there.
So we are gonna be doing more loans in the
Yes,
future.
thank you.
rather than leases. Yeah.
Note B just goes through the district's cash in investments footnote, pretty self-explanatory and simple. I'm gonna skip ahead to note C, which goes through the district's on page 24. Sorry, goes through the district's capital assets. Again, this just shows how much buildings, property and equipment, vehicles, any improvements that are done throughout the school, and walks through that. The one thing that you'll know is new, kind of there in the middle of the page where it says leased assets or right to use. Typically, we would have just kept that under furniture and equipment. Now we're required to kind of break it out. And we can't depreciate that right to use. That is now called amortization. Again, just kind of separates it out and kind of calls out those particular assets. Note D there on the bottom, that's the important one we just kind of talked about, the short-term borrowing that you guys have never had to do, so that's excellent. We'll go to page 25. This is kind of an important one just to kind of gauge the long-term debt that the district has. Kind of shows, paint the picture of what's coming up ahead. So this first kind of table here, we'll go through your beginning balances, any additions or reductions that you might have, and then this last column here shows what's due in 1 year. The second table down, that just kind of goes through each different note, gives you the maturity date, interest rate, the original debt amount, and then the current balance. If you turn to page 26, the top table there will go out through your maturity schedule. That's kind of the one that most people want to see, how much is principal and interest in your total payments throughout over the years. And then that second table, typically we would have presented this in a little bit different format, but this is your lease liability that we've been kind of touched upon here. Shows those different leases and their maturities as well. Now I'm gonna skip around here. Note F, it's quite long. This is your WRS pension. We pull these numbers straight from the WRS, your ETF website. If you struggle to fall asleep at night, you can probably take a read through this. The numbers are based off their actuarial study. So we go on their website, type in the different forms that we need, and grab the district's information, and we're required to report on that. That's note F. And if we skip to note 31, or page 31, this goes through the other post-employment benefits that I kind of mentioned before. There's two of them. One's for health insurance for retirees, and then the other one is life insurance for retirees. Again, this is compiled through actuarial studies, and I'm drawing a blank on you guys. This is key benefits.
Yes.
So again, the information that Maria would provide to key benefits, they turn and spit out a report, and we basically pull the information from there and put it in these statements. That takes us through kind of the rest of the statements, or the rest of the notes here. My next page here. They're quite lengthy, so like I said before, if you want good reading material, I would maybe suggest this. I'm actually going to jump to page 42. Kind of another important schedule here is your budget to actual. And looking at your general fund, and your general fund is split between your general operations and your special education funds. Looking at the budget to actual, you'll see a variance column there. Pretty good. We have some other districts that are not as kind of right on for this. In terms of looking at the budget to actual, I would say Maria and our staff are doing a good job making sure that those budgets are pretty accurate, and being able to forecast for you guys as the board kind of what's coming down the pipeline for the year. One other thing I like to kind of just point out, towards the bottom, you'll see a transfer to special education. Usually special education runs in the negative, and at the end of the year, that's supposed to have a zero fund balance, so it is supplemented by the general operations there. So you'll see about a $2.8 million transfer from the general operations into special ed. That's pretty consistent with prior year. So if that variance was a little bit bigger, I'm sure Maria would be able to help kind of explain what's going on there, but it's only roughly about $40,000 in different this year. So not too much of a difference there. We flip to the next page, page 43. This is your debt service fund. So this goes through that, again, very similar to the budget. Usually there's not a whole lot of activity going on in here, so fairly, much simpler than the general fund. But again, budget versus actual is looking good there. The next page, 44, goes through your capital projects fund. Again, pretty good. So Maria, good job on budgeting. It's an important step, to make sure you guys have an accurate budget to know what's coming down the line. These next few pages, again, are going over the different calculations that WRS and ETF and the actuarial studies are going through, and kind of gives a little bit more detail behind their numbers. Again, we pulled these directly from their actuarial studies. So I'm going to jump ahead to page 56. They did have some changes in their different methods and whatnot this year, but nothing that I would be concerned about for the district. So page 56 and 57 go over your other, what we call like non-major funds. So your special revenue fund, that houses things, like Oriole Nation, or like Wally Weekend, I think might be in there. Kind of those like student activities might be in there as well. Food service, obviously that's your food program. Community service funds, that's things, getting the community involved.
Or Fund 80.
Fund 80, yes. I don't remember what you guys use it for. Is it?
We use it for middle school sports,
Okay.
or SRO, our theater. Those are the main things that we use it for.
And then not as much activity in the long-term capital improvement fund. So if we flip to page 57, again, on your little cheat sheet here, these last two, we kind of like to talk about the food service fund. That's kind of the hot topic here lately with all the free meals for students and the additional federal funding. So you'll see a big increase there in revenue of 572,000 from last year. A lot of that's due to the federal funding. That I would anticipate, going away in the future here once we kind of get out of this COVID. So just one thing to keep in mind that you probably won't see that big of an increase. Maybe this year again, but definitely, hopefully not in the future. But typically, I think looking back, even in 2021, and I did take a peek at the 2020 audit, food services, fairly in a good spot here. The next section we go through is what's called a single audit. The district is subject to a single audit because you receive over $750,000 in federal funds. So there's certain criteria for different programs, whether it's food service or special education, ESSER. Those are kind of the three main ones, the bigger ones right now, that we actually go through, and there's a criteria that we use and a risk assessment that we assess in which programs might be the most susceptible to misstatement or fraud or whatever the case may be. And we actually test certain federal programs. And those are listed in the back here, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The first thing that we touch on, it's an auditor's report on internal control regarding the government auditing standards. So that first paragraph kind of explains the government standards. The next paragraph I'm going to go to is the second paragraph under the report on internal control. We briefly describe in that first sentence what a deficiency is. A lot of people kind of see that word and they get a little freaked out because in the last paragraph on this, we do say that there's a deficiency in internal control here at the district. The only thing that relates to is the preparation of these financial statements, that there's no one on staff that's able to produce government auditing standard financial statements and take full responsibility of implementing new standards and making sure that these are all correct. I can say that every district that I'm on has this as a deficiency. So we do have a couple districts that have a previous CPA on it, and they still won't take responsibility of that. They leave it up to the auditor. So even though it says deficiency, don't be alarmed. The one thing I can say is a lot of other districts have what's called segregation of duties. Here, that is not an issue where the district has enough employees where they're able to segregate duties and everybody's kind of intermingled and able to be cross-trained. So not one person is doing everything. So that's a big important step that can reduce a lot of errors. Most times there's two sets of eyes before anything gets put out the door. So that's a big plus. The next letter, again, is another report on internal control, and that's regarding the state and federal single audit guidelines. The big paragraph here is kind of the second one under an opinion, and after you get past the first 7 words, you can probably stop. It says, in our opinion, the district compiled in all material respects. So if there was any issues, again, we would list them out in this letter if we came across any of those, which we did not. So you can get to So if we go to page 64, this will lay out your schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards. Page 64 is your federal awards, and then page 65 would be your state awards. So single audit is 750,000. So if you look down at the bottom of the disbursements expenditures column on page 64, you'll see the district had just a touch over 3 million in federal funds. So you're well above that $750,000 threshold there. But this will lay out anything that's received from the federal side of things. And then page 65 will go through each award that's received through the state. Again, other than ESSER and maybe a few, other smaller stuff, really not a whole lot of change there. Page 66 are some notes that go along with these two statements. The one I wanted to kind of highlight is note E, the food distribution. The district gets donated commodities and $57,000. those are funds that if, the donations went away, that the district would then have to supply for students. So really, in the grand scheme of things, not a ton of money, but just one thing to kind of point out that the district does receive as a benefit. Page 67 is where we kind of go over our results of our testing, and we do issue an audit report for these. So you'll see under this first line, it says unmodified, which in normal person lingo, not accounting language, it is clean. So if we had any sort of deviations, we would list these here, which we do not. Kind of in the middle of the page here, you can see that we identified some major programs that we went through and tested this year, being the Food Service Fund and then ESSER. Again, no issues there throughout our testing or anything like that. So, and then same thing for the state awards. We do test a few of those every year. There's certain criteria that the state and DPI issue us that tell us every so often how often you have to test those. So again, no issues there. The bottom kind of portion of page 68 goes through why we're listing the deficiency of a financial statement preparation. Again, almost every district that we work with has that as a finding. And then, so there should be 2 letters that are, they might be on their own, not included in the bound copies. Yes. So the first one I'll go through, the first line is we have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities. So this is what we call a governance letter. This goes over any significant audit findings, any major changes in accounting principle. So you'll see kind of in the middle paragraph there, we implemented the accounting standard number 87 for leases. And then we also put in there that we noted no transactions entered in by the school district during the year where there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. And then all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. Kind of in the bottom there, one big paragraph that says difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had none, so that's good. When that paragraph is that small, that means you guys are doing a good job and we're able to get in and out and get all the things that we need. We do talk about any corrected or uncorrected misstatements. Again, any adjustment that we might have had, we talk through with Maria and her staff and kind of get on the same page for those adjustments. So if we had any disagreements, that would be there. The second page of this letter, again, we talk about any disagreements with management, and we're pleased to report that there's no such disagreements throughout our audit process. Skip to our next letter. The top of this letter reads, in planning with performing our audit of the financial statements. This is what we call a management letter. This is pretty specific to what we would give to the board and to Maria with any questions, concerns we might have, or any. Oh, sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think we only have one letter.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I'll have to make sure you get those.
I think. In plan.
Yeah. They should have a new accounting announcement kind of in the middle.
Well, here you go.
We stuck them together.
Good.
They do kind of look the same. I will say that. So while those are getting passed out, I can explain it pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot to report here, but this would be what we call our management letter. Anything that we would give to the district, any improvements that we see fit, or we're recommending the district adopt a certain policy, we would put in there. We also like to put in there any new accounting pronouncements or anything kind of big that might kind of change the way that Maria does things, or some things that Maria and us as the auditors need to connect on. So there is a new accounting pronouncement coming out. It's very similar to the lease standard, except it deals with subscription-based items. So if you think about like Skyward, where you pay an annual fee for that, there's potential, and we have to do a little bit more digging. We've taken some courses on this on our end. one person tells you to document your way out of the standard, the other one says you gotta follow it. So we need to do a little bit more digging and kind of learning on this to make sure how to handle it with Skyward. But if you think Skyward, where you're paying to use a certain piece of software or technology that's developed by somebody else, again, if this would be deemed that it would fall under the standard, we would be seeing an asset for Skyward, and then you'd be seeing a liability similar to the lease standard, just with subscriptions. Other than Skyward, I can't think of anything offhand that would fall under this standard, so nothing new there. Okay.
You can give it to them if you want to go over it.
I'll just touch on it first, that's okay. So I do have the Trefford statements here with me, just to kind of highlight a few things. Again, we do issue an opinion, and again, that's clean, unmodified, so nothing to worry about there. In terms of revenues and expenses, the only thing that's, or let me back up here. In terms of assets and liabilities, the only thing that really changed this year is that Trefford used some of their own funds to purchase some, I think it was some either equipment or building upgrades for the building. So you will see a little bit of an asset for the Trefford. However, no liabilities, which is good. On the revenue side of things, federal funding decreased a little bit. Trefford also is kind of a part of the district, so the expenses increased about $300,000 from last year, which makes sense, I think, for kind of the school getting up and running and being in the second year. So the district does subsidize Trefford so that Trefford won't run negative. So that subsidy did go up a little bit this year from last year. I don't know how that plans out, or kind of Trefford is obviously being new, but I don't think there's anything really too concerning here. The notes to these financial statements are pretty similar. Note A is almost a copycat of what is issued in our normal or our district-wide audit. It's just condensed for what Trefford has. That's really about it. We do issue the same letters on the internal control with government auditing standards. The only deficiency we noted was the financial statement preparation. So they're much smaller, a little easier. But again, we do look at some of those transactions as part of our normal testing, and nothing of concern for us. So.
Do you do the audit on Trefford because it's an instrumentality, or what in terms of charters, like I'm just curious, like why is that separate from, why isn't FLC individual versus?
Sure, and that is because it's a charter school.
Okay.
So,
DPI requires it.
Yeah, DPI requires
Got
it. So. Any questions? I can't promise that I'll have an answer tonight. It's been a while since I've actually been in, well, I shouldn't say a while, maybe a month or two since I haven't been in the details of it. But I can certainly try to answer any questions or touch on anything. Otherwise, Maria has my contact information if you wanted to forward something over to her, and she can give it to me and I can respond that way as well. So.
Well, on the Trefford with the revenues, do you list grants received like you do in our report? Or this report, I should say.
You're talking like the federal and state funding?
Well,
so the only, we don't list them out separately in a nice kind of that schedule of federal and state awards.
Does anybody
Well,
want a
maybe
copy?
Actually,
Thank you.
Anybody else?
so in the big audit, on page 46, at the bottom there, we do list the charter school grant that is received. So this year was 146,000. Last year, I want to say it was like 180-ish, if my memory's right.
I guess, I was just wondering about just independent grant writing. I think charter schools in general do a lot of their costs or their income is based on grants, and I'm just wondering if that's an area that we can improve the revenue for the school there. Maybe it's not a discussion for the audit time, but
Yeah, that part I'm not too familiar with on the Trafford side of it. I would assume you could, but, if we did have a, kind of a different revenue source right now, it's just the federal or the state grant, from DPI. So if there was something additional, we would, show it as a different line item, to kind of break that up, but.
okay. Well, maybe we can talk about that another time. It's just that it's such a unique and such a quality program. I would think it would be attractive to certain national type grants. I know Mackenzie Scott is giving away billions of dollars every year. And she's got an affinity for educational causes and for kids. And, I just want to make sure we're exploring that enough to help with, because we want to keep that going, of course, so as best we can. Okay.
Anything else?
Well, you do a good job, Logan. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Logan.
it.
It's a good partnership.
Yes.
Very good.
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. This is in about 6 months, right?
Unless you get a membership on it.
Oh, are we up for one?
I hope not. No, you shouldn't be.
We'll try.
Logan, how many districts, just curious, do you do this?
Do I do,
you're
so we do board meetings by request, so not every district.
Oh, no, I mean, just the whole audit.
So our firm, I think we're up to 16 school districts, but we also do, the school choice side of things, the private schools. And I think we're at 17 or 18 of those. And we're quite busy. DPI is lovely and makes those due dates the same day. So, we're very busy in the fall, so.
But it's nice, we were with CLA previously, and I think they were a bigger player in that market.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and it, that doesn't always work, because they're
Well, you
doing
guys-
school districts all at the same
Yeah.
time, and trying to meet deadlines was
You guys
really tough.
you guys have a lot more deadlines and,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, so this has been great, they're very responsive when we call or email, and,
Trying to be.
yeah,
So,
yeah, no, it's been good.
perfect. Thank you guys.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay. Superintendent's report. Number one is update strategic planning.
Yes, so in the packet, there was information basically about the highlights from CISA 6, and as you may or may not be aware, we had around 20 individuals who attended our training, and this is individuals from every single level, at every single building. So we had people from FLC, teachers I'm talking about, staff members, administrators, we had people from BAMS, we had Treffert Way, and Horace Mann. So Ted Knightsky runs the strategic planning process, actually goes through like a series of different activities with us to start getting ourselves engaged. And the first set is really based on leadership. And, that understanding that we're all leaders in the room, we all have influence over other things. So how does that happen? And he gives strategies that we can use within, our organizations, within our classrooms, within, our committees, within our meetings, and just trying to get engaged, our staff. And I know that, staff engagement is a big part of this. And so we want to try to unlock that. And that was really the essential from the first day with them. And on here's both day 1, day 2, and day 2 was really about culture and climate of change and how receptive are you to change, and like walking through what does good change look like, so that our staff could kind of see that range from that angle. We go again in February, and up to this point in time, I'm very positive from our staff and their feedback. I've been very fortunate to be, part of this process, and it's great because we get everybody talking to each other and really learning from each other too. And I think just opening their eyes to some things that they might not have seen before, and it gives them one more, some more tools that they can use as well. We publish these notes too for all of our staff to see. So what you see on these 2 pages were, shared out by, members of the committee. So they could like just let the rest of our district know what we're doing with this. There's no secret. This is like stuff we're trying to build, and excited about like where, that desired state's going to lead us and how we're going to get there. So just a quick overview of that. More to come. We have 3 more sessions with Ted in that area as we build our plan.
So can you talk about what comes out of this? I'm a little confused about what comes out of this process and how does that feed because we haven't sat down like as a board and said, here's what our objectives are, here's what our goals are.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we do after this process, or is it something that we should be doing concurrent to it?
I think it'll come after, Rick, because I think what'll happen here is at the end of this, we'll have, lanes or buckets or pillars or whatever you want to call them. One could be like student engagement. One could be family, engagement or connections. One could be operations and facilities. I'm just throwing these out there in general. And then each of those buckets, each building / as a district will have, monthly, things that we want to set and accomplish. Okay. And so really it's about a scorecard showing, what are we doing in that 30 days that we can give back and share with you all and say, this is leading us to achievement or growth within our student, engagement or student learning. It's connecting our families more because of this, that, and the other. The operations and facilities level, we are doing this, that, in that range so that you can see all those things and it's really transparent for anybody who walks through. I think what we're going to see is those pillars. And then once we see those pillars, we're going to, communicate that back to everyone in here and saying, these are the things we're working towards. Again, student learning has to be one of those, in my opinion. And then like, how do we, get staff engagement into that process is another pillar. And then finally, I think the family connection / facilities operations have to be part of that. So then all of our buildings will have continuous improvement groups. So BAMS will have its own group saying, okay, we're going to look at specific to student learning, academics. And then we might also have a group with, behavior or family connection. And then through that, they're going to be channeling different small goals that they can reach and show people on the overall charts and scorecard that they're meeting those. As a district, we'll also have a team, and that's our strategic planning team right now, that will continue to say like, okay, mapping out, what do we want to achieve? How do we want to make that? What does that look like in achievement scores? How are we going to get this done? And that's what you're going to see at the end of this process. It will take a little bit of time even afterwards though, because we're going to have to come back and meet more about how does that scorecard look? How do we do that? And then assess back. You'll also see on our website, those pillars or those buckets are going to be there. So our public knows what we're shooting for and how we're, obtaining that too as well. So that's the general way of looking at it. And I don't know if that answered your question in terms of getting the board involved, but.
Yeah, I guess that's my next follow-up is in everything I'd seen up to this point, it's kind of like the board setting those pillars, and I'm fine letting you guys come and suggest I guess, where does the board's input, or do they have input or approval on any of this stuff, or is it just?
I think it's like listening and understanding, and then also asking the questions to say like, where are you at? How are you showing us that? It's kind of like what we've been talking about before. Here's our current state, showing that out to you so that you're versed in this, so that we can do, better work here or there. Also bringing you up to speed of just like, what is the work that's being done? And that's how I foresee it, more of that than you necessarily generating, here are the goals and the process. I mean, as far as the process, we're putting those things together as the buildings and then sharing those out with you.
Okay.
Tell me more. I'm curious, like.
Well, right, I mean, the detailed work is definitely you guys, but it's always been my assumption that the board sets the high level objectives. Like you just mentioned, student achievement and staff engagement and those things. We've never had a discussion that I've been part of what we think those pillars should be. Now, once, the way I would have, in my head, had it going, was we would agree as a board, here's what we think these 4 or 5 pillars should be. And then they're probably gonna end up being the same, but then you guys drive down and say, okay, here's how we're gonna achieve those, here's the steps, and you come back to us to say, oh, do you agree with this or not? But it sounds like the approach here is you guys are saying, here's what the pillars should be. And I was under the assumption that was the board's role.
I think obviously you'd have to approve those, like when we get to that point. I think I'm leaning on the educational professional, understanding of like, what are those, essentials that are gonna take that to that next level in any of those categories. And so determining that as a staff, as a, committee within that, we're really resting on like the people from within, and then getting your blessing to say, okay, this makes sense. We agree with, these, and they align with, where we're at. And then our job then is to follow through on those and update you on those correspondingly throughout the given year. So that's how I view it, but I will entertain.
I think we're close.
Yeah.
Just
other than you actually being part of the process of, that's what I'm hearing from you, that's different.
not the process of building the detail.
Building the goals.
Building the goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, what concerns me is I don't know as a board if we have agreement. I think we probably do, but I don't know. And I'd like to be sure that we're all in agreement on what the 4 or 5 priorities of the district should be. And we've never, as far as I know, have had that conversation.
Will that conversation come though when Matt brings that to us? This is what our whole process has developed and these
And that's
experts.
okay if we have, what I'm concerned about is if we don't have an agreement of, chances are we're gonna end up agreeing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But what if they come back and we have a different goal that they've never even thought of? I mean, I'd like to see the high level stuff agreed on before there's a lot of effort put in. And my guess is, Matt, they're gonna turn out to be the same. But it's just the process is being driven bottom up instead of top down.
Mm-hmm.
Which we might end up at the same result, which is fine. But it's just, I looked at it different. I just wanted to see where we're at.
And I like the ideas generated from the grassroots and the people who are in the classrooms and things like that, as well as like the professionals who are running, and then sharing that and saying, hey, can we agree upon what these are? And I'm guessing they're in that same like vein. So, I mean, that's how I would like to see it happen in terms of that. And then getting, input from you and questions and feedback and saying like, oh, this either, what about this? Have we thought about that? I think we're open for that as well. If you look at the long term, but I'm guessing that everything that we bring to you is going to be very similar to what you would bring to the table or put up on the dash too when we get all said and done.
I would guess.
Yeah.
I would hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Other questions about the planning process so far?
I guess I'd just add that I'm confident that, like you said, the people that are working in the classrooms that have been taught about education and teaching and administration, not that we're not part of that, and as board members are at the top level, but I would prefer to see what comes and then see that we agree with it, or if we don't agree with it, from our standpoint, or at least maybe periodic updates of where these groups are heading towards.
Well, and that's the whole point is like when we get done with this, we will have a scorecard where you'll see like, okay, this group is doing this is what they're doing per month, and that stuff is charted. And so it's not just, hey, we're doing a lot of good stuff. It's like, we've got that log for you all to see that, but also, the evidence behind it too, because I think that's important, and share those things out in our beginning sessions here as well.
And I don't want to be misconstrued here to say that we're the ones that should be designing it. I'm not saying that 100, but what I saw last week at the conference and what I heard everybody doing is the board sets the priorities mean, if it comes to and these goals even drive the budget, right?
Mhm.
So if it comes down to, we have decisions to make on the budget, what's our the board's number one priority? Is it student achievement? Is it staff engagement? Is it community involvement? What's our top priority? We've never even had those discussions. And those, I think, need to help drive not only what Matt's team builds. You know, if the community's fine with I'm not saying that, I'm just using stupid examples, but if the community's fine saying student achievement's fine, we don't need to spend any more money on that. Or if we decided to say that, then them spending a bunch of time on student achievement would be kind of pointless. Now, that's a stupid example, obviously, but everything I saw was the board sets the very high level, not how to do it. I'm not saying that, we're not those guys.
Right.
But the priorities that we set as a board should drive what drives the strategic plan, and it should drive the budget process. When we decide where to spend money, it should be based on the priorities that we've agreed upon as the board. And it bothers me that we've never had that discussion. I have no idea where Terry stands, Vicky stands on these things.
Mhm.
And I have no idea. And I think that's an issue.
Is that something we can do? Like just have a conversation and get it facilitated by somebody and I'd love to listen to where people's, beliefs are and things. And I think we started talking a little bit about it when we had Ted in here with high performing, school boards and like, what are those major, elements that we want? But I think it's going a little bit deeper too, is like, what do you want to see for your district? I mean, or what do you want to see within this world if you could have it, your way? I'm just I don't know. I'm throwing that out there as a possibility for a conversation or a future conversation.
I think it's a good conversation to have. And I think it has just been communicated differently in the past where, not that we didn't, I don't mean that we didn't know what was all going on and what, but as far as coming from, like you said, the trenches and I get what you're saying. It's like, so you're gonna do all of this work and then all of a sudden, we might have a different goal or something of the district or where we wanna head with it. But at the same time, unless as a board, we are present at like the conferences and things like that. So do we even know what our choices are? Obviously we want high achievement, right? But, sometimes as a board member, right, it's a whole nother language learning what you guys are even doing in a boat. As far as education language goes, right? So, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm not sure that we can come up with 4 or 5 or 6 pillars. Well, I think we all would be on the same page, right? I think so. There's only so many. It's not like there's 20 of them out there. Right? As far as,
and you want to keep it simple. Like if you look at most districts, again, like I was talking, teaching and learning, okay, staff engagement, right? Student learning, engagement, that could be another pillar. Family connection, operations, facility, safety. Those are kind of the broad, big buckets. And from within those, then you can drill down pretty deep.
But even then prioritize those 4 or 5, like 1 to 5. If we have fiscal restraints, which we're going to,
right,
and it comes budget time and we need to prioritize how we're going to spend the money, we should be prioritizing it based on the priorities we have for achieving those goals. So there's 4 or 5 or 6, whatever the number is. But I would think we'd want to pick, to start with 2, 3, maybe 4 at the tops and prioritize those to say, hey, if funds get tight, which they're going to be, where do we want the dollars to be spent? And are we making sure we're getting the bang for those dollars based on what our priorities are? And how we do things in those particular categories, that's your guys' job to tell us that. That's my opinion.
And I think at the same time too, like when we talk, let's just look at student achievement, right? There are gonna be specific, if that's the top priority, right? We have to do specific things within that frame to say like, this is how we're getting this done. This is the money that we're gonna need to do this.
Right.
Here's the essential. I would also say the hard part about it is like you almost need those things, like they kind of do a lot of this. So it's it's the threading of all those together as a braid where you're, without teachers who are engaged and have the tools to be successful. Sometimes it's difficult to create that high achievement within that arena without family engagement who understand exactly what's going on, and then facilities who are like keeping our place. I mean, it's this balance. And so again, I would say like, it's gotta be a small number like that. It cannot be 10 or 15. It's gotta be like 4 or less, in my opinion.
Right. No, I agree. I think we're at such a starting point that even 2 or 3 is probably
right
enough to try to bite off and really make progress on.
But I also want to be able to say to you, like, if facilities and operations didn't make that for safety, I want to be able to say, here's what we've been doing.
Right.
So you know what's going down on the monthly or whatever it might be. So you just have a better, accurate picture of the happenings in a great way. Like, again, all of it would be, that positive, but also just saying, here's the current state.
So other than you and, your team informing us of that, as a board, other than, I guess, I don't want to say common sense, but how would we know what our choices are for pillars? I mean, other than we know we want the kids to succeed, we know we have to have good facilities, we know, I mean, I know we can come up with them, but is there, I don't know, somewhere out there that.
Is it more desired state though? Is it more what your priorities are versus even the pillars? Like, we want this place to be the best place for our kids, high achieving, those kind of statements. Rick, are you looking for specifics like boom, 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 boom? Like, these are the points versus like the overall like vision of what we want, or as a board and as a district?
Well, I mean, and I'm not sure I can answer it. I mean, we put out this high level vision statement, but we haven't said, here's what we want to get done, or here's what we want to focus on. And, what's going to end up happening is the stuff you guys come up with is probably going to be what we would come up with, but there's still within that, we should be setting the priorities of, like, I know what I think should be the top priority, but I'm not sure everybody else agrees. And I know what I think the second priority should be, but we should come to a consensus as a board and give you that direction. And everything you're doing, I think you still need to do. But when it comes to choices, then you say, okay, the board's focused on this right now. These 2, 3 things are the key focus for the next year for the board. So how are we going to support that? And we've got all these things to do, you're right. But I just, and I'm fine playing it out this way and seeing if we come to what I'm happy with.
Yeah.
But I would think you would want that direction from the board at some point.
I think it would be great just to have that conversation, like, once we get to that point, to say like, here's what we came up with. Where are you all at too? I mean, and thinking about that. And then if you were to say like 1, 2, 3, or whatever, which order you want to go in, I'd be curious just to hear that. So that could be at least a guidepost for us to say, okay, we need to double down in this zone a little bit more than maybe this zone. I think looking at that might help guide us to a little bit in terms of direction, when we're, making the improvement or putting the action into play.
Anything else? All right, go to Activities Director Jake Dostalik, yep.
Yeah.
Review
So
student athlete survey.
I sent out a survey, or the middle of December sometime. And we didn't get much feedback from it, so I'm still working on some teachers, but it's a start. Like we're talking about the beliefs, stand up and own it. Right now, we're bent, I would say. We're not in a straight line. So we have, out of 188 kids that took the survey out of the whole high school, so 460 some students take the survey, are supposed to take the survey, 188 responded. Now, what was on that survey was all our clubs listed. So I just wanted to see where we're at as far as participation and everything. Because right now, what the biggest thing that I'm seeing is kids aren't coming out for the sport. They're just not. I mean, we had good numbers in volleyball. We had decent numbers in basketball. Every other sport right now is low. And it just seems to be a trend throughout the year. So what was on there was clubs, out of 188 students that responded, 77 kids did not do a club. They just don't do it. No interest. So my goal now is to go talk to those kids, or at least find out. So yeah,
I'm just putting this up here so you guys can all see this, okay?
So simple questions, right? Do you participate in a club or in sport? Well, 58% said yes, or club at school, and 41% said no. So 41% already out of 188. I mean, yeah, we got half the school almost that they're not doing anything. So,
Well, but I mean, I guess my question is, why do the survey? Why not just go to the advisors for the clubs and the coaches for the?
it's just the numbers for me, so I can get to it. We don't have it. We don't have all the numbers on there on Skyward. Each kid can sign up for something, but that doesn't show that they're actually in it. This shows that they're actually in it.
But I mean, you have less than 50% participation.
Right, so this is just the starting base.
Are you assuming that the people who don't answer, my assumption would be the people who did answer aren't involved.
Right, right.
So the numbers are way worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, I mean, just sending out a survey to each coach and advisor, I would think you could get the numbers.
This was sent to every kid.
I know, but you got less than 50% participation in the survey results.
Right.
Where if you ask the basketball coach, how many kids do you have who's on your team, he's gonna tell you, I got whatever, 15, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the key club advisor would tell you, I've got this many. I mean, you could get the actual numbers.
Yeah, I think this is an initial just blush, just to see where things were at. I know he's gotta, go to that next level too at some point in time, but at least this gave him a little bit of an understanding of like, here's some base numbers that it's not the final data here that we're trying to get out of this, but just to give a blush. Do you have a question?
I know specifically within some of our clubs, there's active participants and just general members. That number, the active participants is a lot fewer than general members. So the survey really shows, if you check your email, you're typically an active member in a club. So it further shows like the activity level. I know like general, like asking like the key club advisor how many members you have, that number is going to be a lot more than what's shown on the survey. Because there's a few members that aren't active, like they just don't participate, but they're still able to be in the club. Because we're not necessarily able to require that activity.
So, yeah, I mean, is there any other questions? So I just wanted to see how many kids are actually, like I said, this is a base start. It's not the one be all survey. So all those aren't showing up.
Yeah.
They started to.
They did, and then they left.
Yeah.
Maybe it was me
So
doing something.
we can move on. So
Okay.
there's just a number of kids, which, yep, those kids, like you said, we can go after those kids that are in the club, talk to them and see the numbers. But right here, you play in a fall sport. 66% of those 188 don't play in a fall sport. So I'm assuming the kids that didn't take the survey aren't participating in fall sport either.
Right.
So that's my assumption as well. So right now we have 33% of those kids saying yes. That's scary. And going in, then the next question was, which sport do you play? Now, boys soccer is pretty low. But they also have a lot of kids that go to, that's a co-op between Oakfield and Springs. So that might be low, but that's also a starting point where we can get more kids here at and not maybe be a co-op, because the co-op is also putting us in a higher division come playoffs. So we were in Division 2 with 3 teams, that puts us at 800 students with Oakfield, Springs, and us.
Can I ask a quick question? Not even about the results, so thanks for putting it together first, but, what is a healthy amount of participation? Like what, not even for us, but just in general, I don't even know what that would look like.
I'm just going off, okay, so I like following Kimberly.
There you go, okay.
75 or 77% of their kids play 2 sports.
Okay. And what about activities? Is it?
I didn't get the
Okay.
activities number, but almost 77% of those kids play 2 sports.
And you're talking the high school,
Yeah,
right?
I'm talking
Which
high
is
school.
1,300 students.
Okay.
So, I mean, I like basing it off the number one, I consider it the number one athletics in the school, in the state.
Sure.
So I like being goal oriented, that's my goal.
Yeah, that's helpful to know.
So yeah, then it seems like through the trend throughout the year gets worse. Winter sport, it bumps up a couple percent to almost 70% that don't participate. I get to the same questions, what do you do? And then moving on into spring, which concerns me a lot, is almost 75%. So my question when I'm looking at this, yep, it's not everybody, but why are we're still losing the people that participate in it? We're still losing numbers. That shows me that we're not multi-sport athletes. We're going 1 and done. We're going maybe 2 and done. In a small school, that's going to be real, because we have a lot to offer. That's going to be really hard to fill teams, which we're seeing. And then this is the biggest thing. 85% of those kids don't participate in strength and conditioning. That's the hugest thing that when we talked to Kimberly, their main thing was, they called it the hub, was the weight room. Everybody met in the weight room. That built your programs, that, you got team. I mean, you have everybody, coaches coming together. So if we're following this, what I've been trying to do is stand it up and own it. Yeah, I would say we're bent right now. We're not, a straight line would be perfect, we're bent. Somehow we gotta get these kids motivated to come out. I look at it as power of team. If my coaches aren't on board with the belief system, kind of like how Mr. Mino here was talking about those pillars, I have some pillars in mind that I want my coaches to follow. And we talk about that monthly, actually. We have monthly meetings. So with my coaching staff, those that can make it, it's almost all of them, we're trying to come up with ways on how we can be more proactive with our students. Showing up after school. It doesn't mean every day, but maybe an assistant comes this week, maybe a coach comes next week. Something like that, where we're trying to develop these ourselves within the coaching staff, because I feel like the same kid that's gonna go out for track might be the same kid that's going out for cross country. Luckily enough, we have the same coach there, but football player might be going out for wrestling. If coaches are different in their beliefs, that kid might like the football coach better and say, well, I'll just listen to that coach. That's broken system, and I want to get away from that. Not saying we have it, we just have some strong-minded coaches that I think we all need to learn and hear what they say. So we all have one thing though, the passion for growth. We all notice that we need more students out. We need these students participating. Now this isn't just North Bondi. Nina had 6 freshman girls out for basketball. 6 out of 2,000 kids. Ripon has 30, maybe 30 kids out for football. They had less than us. Appleton East, the numbers are there, but for 1,700 kids, they're having the same issue as far as participation. So as a new role, this is where the question is why? So until I start actually talking to these students and, getting them to buy in, that's kind of where we're at. Now, granted, yes, this survey, it's not the best survey, but my next goal is to get middle school because that's our future. So me, Mr. Hughes, and Mr. Mickey, we had a conversation last week, and also Mr. Whitaker. 6th through 7th grade, hey, what are you interested in? 8th grade, you're moving on to high school next year. What are you interested in? They said they would actually sit down with each student that they have in their classes and do this. So we can actually have a full middle school data. I still would like to get all because I can see who participated in this, through their email. So I would still like to go poke those who didn't. But I don't think it's gonna get better. And that's just my assumption on what we got from here. So to me, it's a base. We have athletes that want to do things. We also, I'm speaking with athletes, daily, just walking around trying to learn what they see. And I asked a girl, like, hey, we only have 15 girls out for softball, what's going on? And her instant response was, girls or students don't want to do anything. Why? That's my biggest, that's why we have all these clubs and all these options for these kids. Why aren't we doing anything? And I had a question on there was, is it work related? Is it grades? And work was maybe 20%, 15% out of the 188. Now that's going to be more probably for those who didn't participate in it. But grades are, we get help with grades. We can get grades out of there. So yeah, it doesn't keep me up at night, but when I'm coming into work, it's like, all right, we got to get these kids motivated to be there. So that's kind of where we're at. I just wanted to give you guys hey, this is what I'm seeing. We have kids that want to be in there, but like that leadership thing, that's going to help us out a lot. I plan on, by the end of the month here, is taking two people from each team and talking to them about what can we do for your team as far as, if you play 3 sports, what's going on with that? What are you hearing from other kids? How can you recruit other kids? A simple statement of kids just don't want to do anything. Well, why not? Is it something else? Is it more? What's going on? So there's more that we can talk about, but I just wanted to give a quick guideline. This is where we're at. This is what I'm thinking about. My goal is weight room orientated. We got to get that because it seems like kids, when I'm in there, come. But if I'm not there, and we have a strength coach. So right now, actually, so I'll give a little update on that. Right now, our strength coach is working 2 days a week with our wrestling program, 2 days a week with our girls basketball, and also our guys basketball is starting to finally buy in and go. So I require 2 days a week in season that they have to go to the weight room and work with our strength coach.
And are they using the same program or a similar program?
Similar program, full body. So my goal is full body. We only see the kids 2 times a week. So if you can program that correct, which you should be able to, and I help our strength coach with that. He comes to me and I kind of mentor him a little bit on what I've done because that's almost 10 years of experience in that. So that was my degree before teaching. So we're working on it. It's a marathon, not a sprint right now, and that's kind of what I just wanted to update you guys on because. Yeah, we're at girls basketball, we're doing okay. Wrestling, we're doing okay. Boys basketball, we're not doing so hot right now. So then I always ask, what can we do better? What's going on? And right there, we don't have numbers. We don't have a JV2 team. And I think last year, I talked to Mr. Mickey, the coach from 8th grade, and he had over 10 kids. You only need 5 on a court. So those freshmen just didn't come up. So we're working on it. Any questions? Oh,
I was just gonna comment that, culture, obviously, in a program, you mentioned Kimberly, and there's a winning culture there, and it doesn't have to be winning, but that's the thing for kids to do there in Kimberly, and they're pushed by parents and motivated. Winning helps, but, there's been times in our history and society changes also is part of it, what kids are interested in. I've read over the years in school board journals and stuff, like, for example, football. Their studies have shown some kids just don't want to get yelled at and get kicked, so they don't play football. They're fine working so they can buy a car, whatever, and they'll play basketball or something. So a lot of that enters into it. We've had conference championships in our sports over the years, and at those points, there were kids that were followed, all the way through that from a youth program, things that was just the thing you did. You went out for admire. If you like sports, you went out all 3 seasons for the sport, but it isn't always that way, anymore in a society changes, but, my grandson goes to Westy Pier, and I went to one of their football games this year, very successful. They lost in the state championship game, but I look up because he wouldn't sit, of course, by me. That'd be pretty bad news for him. But he was sitting with a group of sixth graders. There must have been 40 boys there that were there cheering and excited, and they can't wait till they're in high school to play football, And so that it's kind of got to get nurtured and cultivated also, and that's not easy to do.
Right.
So,
Another thing, like, I don't see our coaches doing youth camps. Like, they can host a youth camp and our high school kids can actually coach it. So that's another thing I'm bringing to the table as far as coaches, you want more skill development. Okay, well, here's a chance for you to have engagement with youth. Here's another chance to show that you're teaching these steps through your athletes right now at the high school, and you're trusting the coach the youth. So I'm kind of looking into that as well, as how many times we can do that, what's the recommended amount, do other schools do this? And I know other schools do this, but each sport has a day or two. I know volleyball did it this fall, which they had a great turnout, and look at our volleyball numbers. We have 62 students in middle school right now out for volleyball. I mean, that's a huge number when 6 can play on a court, which is great. That's great. I mean, but.
And I agree, and I think you're doing a fabulous job, because we have to start asking those questions, and I think all of that is great. And I do think that, it's that balance of investing in kids, right? Because, I mean, they're not stupid. The coach is just gonna be, I'm here during my time. I'm not gonna invest in these other kids, if you're in a weight room, doesn't matter to me. I just want you here during practice. I mean, kids get that.
Mm-hmm.
They know who's investing in them and who's not. But I just wanna kind of I don't know if it's Aiden's class and juniors and sophomores, I think, but when they were in 7th and 8th grade, they had 18 kids on their basketball team.
Yeah.
Where'd they go?
Right.
Why all of a sudden are we
That's the
struggling
biggest question
kids?
is why.
Yeah, why?
So.
Can I just say a couple things? What I've noticed from, the work Jake's done is, you've got to start with obviously your leaders, your coaches, and he's taking the time to meet with them monthly and really establish what are those beliefs? What do we have as, the priorities, as we're talking about here before? But I think in addition to that is what are those North Stars, those non-negotiables? Weight rooms are non-negotiable. You got to get in here. You got to figure this out. How are you going to invest in the younger groups and the youth programs? And I think another thing that he also is starting to get, is the students involved too in leadership work. All those elements, it takes time, but you start building that, and that's the right recipe. We met with Steve Jones, the football coach from Kimberly, or former football coach from Kimberly, and Lucas Jaden on a call, and we were sharing, some of the things that they were doing. He's like, yep, those are the right things. It's just going to take you time to build, and don't accept anything underneath that excellence that you're trying to get, and stay consistent. So I think there's a lot of work that, Jake's doing. I think this is a great dipstick. I think we know that there's a thing that we have to figure out, but I think really glaring is that okay, you have 17, 18 students. And I remember even coming into this district, we've got programs at that youth level, and then at high school, what happens? So how do we turn that over? And I think that's just going to take some time, but once you get it, and once you start seeing that it's going to happen. I know the next topic is referendum, but going down to Mayville, throughout that whole building, it's just splattered with cardinal all over the place, and you feel okay, this building is really rocking me too. Their weight room, it's electric. You go in there, it's yeah, I want to be part. So it's those are additional icing on the cake things, but it starts with, I think, the programming that Jake's already put into place. So it's just going to take time and belief and energy and attitude and getting more people to buy in. So I'm confident, we got stuff going. It's just going to take a little bit more time as we go along. But anyway.
So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to update you guys on, because I know I'm only a few months, still only a few months into school year, so it's been a learning curve, as well as now, okay, we're in a new year, summer's coming up, what can we do for our clubs and sports for next season? So And right now it's hiring the right coaches, and I'm not trying to fill a position just to fill it. So that's my kind of theory on that, and it'll take time, but the right person will I'm looking for the kid magnet is what I'm kind of looking for, somebody that can relate with kids and not just come there and like you said, just come there, show up and not relate to the kids, because kids want to talk to you. I mean, I've had some of the best conversations in the weight room when I just pop in there. So it's fun. So I missed that part, but yeah, it's good. So that's all. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jake. And Jake, you'll continue to update us, I think, again, before the end of the year, just kind of like where we're at. So we can get some of those, either be it numbers or other planning as we're moving forward. That'd be great. All right, moving on to Post-Educational Options Act 55. This act is really just saying we are required by state statute to notify parents of the educational options that exist at Final Act. So I'm just letting you know that's been shared. It's out there. People know that we have that. Just more of an update than anything else. It's a quick run through. I skipped referendum planning. I went around, sorry, Steve. I was just so excited about Educational Options Act. Yeah. In fact, so the referendum, so we've been working with Bray and C.D. Smith, Mike Gonzalez and Samantha Freeman and, myself, Maria, Dave Mann. We've been part of the initial just kind of conversations and generating those ideas and where we're at. We created some guiding principles and I shared those last time we were here, as well as an aspiration statement to, share with our staff to say this is where we're going. Today we had another step in the journey. We took a tour. We got to go to Mayville, Kewaskum, and Ripon. In each of those areas, we checked out middle school, high school, layouts of how things were, be it from the classroom and learning experiences to the cafeterias and commons to the weight rooms. And so we got a good sense of how people were doing and using the referendum dollars to either renovate, build brand new or whatnot. But I think it was great for our staff. We took about 14 people total. Mm-hmm. They got out to see that. I know, Mike, you got to debrief with your staff for a little bit afterwards. And I'm just kind of curious of some of the conversations that came out of that too. So.
Well, yeah, they had really good questions about how, what other buildings have, how will that translate to our buildings? Being that, for example, one of them was a renovation project, the other one was a complete rebuild. We have things in the middle, so we had a good conversation. I just feel there's some specific questions that I want to ask the general referendum team. Just some weeds, getting into the weeds and things like that. But I think overall, they were very impressed with what they saw. And it gave us a whole slew of ideas on how to proceed. Some schools, they have some commonality, but some differences. And I think those are things that we need to further elaborate upon.
Yeah, again, now the next steps here, we meet on 2 times a month with C.D. Smith and Bray, and we get in the room, we do a conference call. But now what we'll start doing a little bit is getting those subgroups, so the middle school have a subgroup of teachers and, Mike and some of those players from both those organizations, and then so will the high school. And then we'll start talking through these plans. A lot of the plans, there is, the square footage is laid out, a little bit of the design is starting to be, played out. It's going to be more of that technical, how do we, establish this here? Where do we want this? How does this door entry, where's the fire door? All those little things that we want to get more information from our staff, which makes sense. But then getting into conversation about furniture, okay, what makes sense for the learning within the classroom? Is it rolling furniture or is it stationary? And that goes back to those same beliefs. We want flexible learning environments and other things that we've mentioned already before. So I feel like we've got some good things going. It's exciting. It's a fun process. Yes, it's a lot, but at the same time, you get to really, see some other things and figure out how you can best make it work here for all of our community.
And could I add another thing?
Please.
We really enjoyed having conversations with the staff that were used to, they're probably used to having a lot of groups on tour. So these staff members had really good side conversations with our teachers, and we're cutting to the chase when it comes to certain things. They gave us some advice about rolling chairs and how for middle school that doesn't really work. And, you know, so they told us what things break, what things don't break, like what types of floors would be better, what mistakes they made that they should improve upon. So it was really productive and it was really a good time.
I think the great thing too is right in our backyard, or right here, we get a lot of great examples of, great structure too. So, and we're fortunate to be in a district. And so when you walk around and you see all these other places, it's amazing the work that's here already. We had Appleton School District come through about 2 weeks ago. They're building a whole new elementary, and it was just a wow factor for two reasons. One, just the layout, and two, how clean our building was. And thanks to Dave's staff, and like, I don't know how many times they're saying, this is so clean, this is, and it's just, again, we don't realize how great it is here in North Fond du Lac, and the work our people do day in, day out is amazing. So it was just cool to see that feedback from other people coming in and checking us out too. All right. I think that's what I got. I mean, other announcements, I don't have anything else on that right now, so.
Okay, then we'll move to new business, and item 1 is to discuss and consider policy edits, deletions, and additions, the second reading.
So I'm gonna ask if we can table this for right now, so we can meet with the policy meeting one more time before we come to this. Also, for time wise, I just want to make sure we can get through some more things. If we can table that till next meeting, and I want to get to with Terry and whoever wants to come in, and Vicky, and go through those again. I'll walk through them a little bit more in depth. So take our time on that and make sure that's part of that February meeting. So
Can we do it, are we doing it on the 15th one, the special meeting?
we can do whatever, if we want to do it.
Meet with the policy group on the 15th?
Yes, we could do that. And then,
I don't want to speak.
yeah, instead of like doing an hour before.
Oh, you guys want to meet? I just,
Let's add on
sorry,
to it.
timeline guy.
Why don't I'll throw that out there for an option this week, and I'll just send something out. So if we want to do it that time, or we can do it on the 27th of February too as well. Okay. All right. All right. Open enrollment, and included in your packet, you see numbers here. And this is based on a lot of different things, but you see like projected growth. You see our second January count. You see our September January count. You see students per section on the left-hand side, as well as grade levels per. And then really what it comes down to is availability is that on that right-hand side, based upon caps that are created based on projections, based on enrollments, based on growth, all those things that come into play. So if you look here right down the board with that open enrollment, we're very limited. I mean, if you look, first of all, SPED or special ed on the far right, there is 0 openings there. Okay, so it just shows you like where we're going and how we're growing. And then if you look at, that second column to the left of that, then you can see all the different variances. And when it means 10, when it's a plus, that means we've got room for 10 students at that level. When it means -12, we're already -12 below what, that cap is. Okay.
Could you just, that projected 22% growth column?
Yes.
I don't understand that.
So when you look at this is what, based on enrollment, based upon our numbers in terms of per section, based upon the proposed, like our first Friday count, our second Friday count, and then Baird does this analysis based on all those factors and computes it onto a stream of saying like, this is where our numbers are going and growing. And so what you got here, and if you notice, most of them are segueing from the year before. So if you look at 22, 23 at 107, that projected growth for that following second grade year is that 107 level for the next quarter.
Oh, I see, it goes down.
Yep.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the way through.
Yeah. And again, I guess the interesting thing is like I'd like to do an analysis of like homes being built in our area and like what's our capacity, what we're starting to see, because there's a lot of lots that are going up right around our neighborhoods, and how that's going to affect also our open enrollment numbers and just our numbers in general. So I'm just curious to do an analysis, or have someone do an analysis on like, what is our projected growth in terms of building on, and Dave and has asked, like, at least the village and some other areas, like just saying what's available right now, what are people building on? I don't know if you want to mention anything about that right now, but it's a lot of homes.
Right now, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have seen the excavation going down between Blackbird, you know, there was, I don't have the numbers with me, but, I think they're looking at, about 100 units between multi-family duplexes and single-family homes. So Jim Rouse is taking over that subdivision from the main trade trail and Jim Flood. And we all know what Jim does, he's taking that fire, and I think that's gonna happen right here, so. I think you guys in the next couple of years, your cap limits are gonna really have to change. You know, talking with Peter at the village, Peter Cutters, he said the same thing, that he feels Jim's gonna really light this thing up. I've got on my places on Blackbird, I've had constant people wanting to buy them, so it's just crazy. Or I'm crazy for not selling them, I don't know.
A long time ago.
I guess that's a good problem to have,
But it also starts thinking, okay, like what's next, you know? And yeah. So any other conversation, questions or discussion about?
I had a quick one with the sibling thing. Has that changed in the last year or two? Are the siblings, once the first one's in an open enrollment, the following siblings are automatically in if they come?
I think it's changed. It just changed this year, and it's not an automatic. In the past, it was like, this is how, if you have a sibling, then you're automatically in. Now it's not necessarily the same case because of the factor, just room and space, and you know, those districts are supplying their resources to that district and then that loss. So yeah, open enrollment is changing like nonstop. And we're getting new laws, kind of every single, I don't want to say every single day, but there's been a lot of changes within the open enrollment law as well.
And maybe a lot more coming in the next session.
Yes.
Yeah, I know there's talk of full-time open enrollment all over. Okay.
Which will create a lot of
I'm
fun.
not sure, so this shows us like 13 over already.
Yes.
So what the recommendation is to cap it where we're at now, or what?
The recommendation is that, so we had 1620 right here, and then we're over 13, is to go with the caps that we have there, but also, you know, plan on that available, give or take of what we have, you know, for those grades. Okay. So that's what we're looking at for right now.
So if you're, so you're saying if it's a plus number, you're gonna allow
Yes.
more into that?
Right, into that grade level only.
But if we're over, so if you got like the minus 18, you're not gonna deny 18, right?
You can't deny it. Well, if those 18 are already in, they're in. Once you're in as an open enrollee, you're in. So we're like, we have those students no matter what.
Just no new.
We just know that we're not gonna bring anybody else into that grade level.
Grade,
Mhm.
but you're still gonna take in other grades.
Correct.
And then things change by September 1st, where we lose some, and, you know, people move around quite a bit, and,
And then
some
we
apply and don't.
then we reassess too, to say like, okay, is there availability? Is there space? Do we have enough, you know, is there enough FTE that would provide that? You know, we're not gonna just start putting 35 in a classroom. You know, we have to also be realistic to say like, okay, let's keep it at the cap or that student ratio as best as we can, so we can supply that, so.
All right, so we need to act on that. We'll entertain a motion to approve the open enrollment capacities for next school year as presented. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Hack,
Yes.
Woldowski, yes. Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Mathew,
Yes.
All right, motion carried. Item 3, discuss and consider market adjustment of associate pay scale for special education. Well, we'll still act on this, but we're gonna recess from that meeting. Did you want to discuss that first from the earlier meeting on the market?
I thought
We did.
We already said yes. We move for, looking at that. So again, that was like the premise of, hey, we need to move up certain areas that we have to look at in terms of right now for those adjustments. And with that being said, I know there was a statement, something like the open part of that in terms of maybe it wouldn't be open for any kind of advancement later on down if we bump up other people. But I think we're just gonna keep that open and just think, if we can, if that's a possibility, we'll look at it based on the numbers and fiscally. So that was the conversation we were having.
So not necessarily just an early increase for what we might normally do in the summer. We're just starting February 1st. Is that the plan? And then
We are starting February 1st with those groups, or now. I mean, as soon as we can, I don't know what they.
That's February payroll.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
okay, but then not necessarily giving the next raise, subsequent raise 3 months later in June or July, I mean.
depending if there is a raise, we would have to cautiously think about what does that look like if they have anything at all for that matter.
That's not a hard and fast decision, that depending on what's going on then. And
Correct.
We could.
This is purely for right now for those groups.
Okay. Yeah. Again, we'll need a motion then to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Can I just
Please.
question, how will that be communicated though then to the staff that this affects? Shouldn't they know whether or not they're gonna get another increase? Or more importantly, if they're not? Which that I would caution that would cause another domino effect and we'd have to look at everybody if you raise them again.
I think what we need to do is this is the now, and with the understanding that it might not have, they might not have that opportunity when it comes to the second raise, okay? Not saying that it's a done deal and saying this is closed, but I think we have to just say that there's a possibility that there might not be another raise within that frame once we look at other people's salary bumps. Is that fair?
That's fair, yeah.
Rest of the people, is that fair? I think that's what we're kind of trying to say here too, with not saying this is an absolute, but at the same time, the door's just a little bit open for that depending on where we're at.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this includes all the groups except for the educators and the administrator, right?
No, it does not include clerical,
The groups that are listed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the ones that are listed. Okay,
I've got it.
I do have it.
I think
It does not include payroll and finance, any of the
So
clerical.
it's special education paraprofessionals, supervisory support paraprofessionals, instruction, academic support paraprofessionals, and custodial maintenance. Those are the
Yeah,
four
we just
groups.
wanted to make sure that all groups are at least starting at $15 an hour, which the other ones weren't. Except for the supervisory aides, they would start at 13. So it was bumping up that starting wage.
All right. Well, what I was gonna add was the educator group and the administrator group are different. That's a different animal because
Yes.
they're
Correct.
contracted employees.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
These are hourly, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, do we have any other discussions? Roll call?
Matthew,
Yes.
Jaeger,
Yes.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Goldowski, yes.
Okay, and then item 4, discuss and consider employee resignation, retirement from closed session.
So, this is bittersweet for me to say, and I wish, obviously, we have an amazing retirement. Dave Mand has selected to do this as of a few weeks ago. And
again, I've only known Dave for a few months, but as I was sharing with you all before, I mean, the dedication, the loyalty, you know, the stick-to-itness, I'm gonna take a call at 4:15 in the morning or, you know, whatever. But also, you know, I think I've seen him just as a leader, like manage up his people all the time, and others too, like with positivity and yet guidance and strength. So, and just learning from all the different things that have happened and the amount of history that he has within his frame has been really an amazing gift to be able to be part of and learn with for these few months and for the rest of the year. But I think North Fond du Lac has been extremely blessed and fortunate to have an individual like himself within our frame. It does so many amazing things for all of us. So on behalf of, you know, the district, Dave, congratulations. I know it's bittersweet. I know there's a lot of things moving forward with grandchildren, as congratulations on your new grandchild too, as of yesterday. But we just want to reach out and say that as a full group that we're so happy you're part of us and always will be. Yeah.
We got a few more meetings to hear nice things about you too, yeah. Enjoy. And who had the baby?
Tom.
Oh, okay. Out in California. Nice. Okay, then look for motion to adjourn this meeting, and then we'll resume the closed session meeting.
Do we have to accept that? Do we have to accept it?
All right.
I don't know, I'm asking the question.
Oh, yeah, you're right. No, I'm just kind of laughing about maybe get a little airheaded here. So, yeah, I guess we have to do that. All right, then we have the motion and everything, or don't we have that?
We don't have a motion in
Okay.
second yet, no.
All right,
I'll make the motion, but thank you, sir, for everything.
all right. Second, anybody?
I'll second
All right.
again with regret.
Further discussion and the roll call.
Geckerman,
Yes.
Goldowski, yes. Jaeger.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Hawk.
Yes. All right. So, yes, maybe subconsciously when adjourned, so we couldn't approve it.
Yeah. Good try.
Okay, then motion to adjourn, and again, I'll encourage the board to stay for resumption of the closed session.
Make the motion.
Second,
Geckerman,
Yes.
Hawk.
yes,
Goldowski, yes. Jaeger.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
all right. We need